Welcome back to Maths with Miss Miller. This is for year 2 and it's for anyone who might need to recap telling the time, or anyone who normally has additional support in class, or just if you need a little bit extra work to do. So what we will be learning about today is telling the time, and we'll be looking at how to tell the time by saying it is half past the hour. So our learning objective is, can I tell the time to half past? On a clock, the long hand tells us how many minutes there are. So this long hand is pointing to the 12. It's at the top of the clock, which means the minutes haven't started yet. We're on 0 minutes, and then it goes all the way around, and there's 60 minutes total in the clock. So each time it gets to a new number, that's 5 minutes later. I'm sure you've learned that already. So when it points to the top, that is 0, 0. There are no minutes there. So the long hand tells us how many minutes. The shorthand tells us the hour. So this shorthand on this clock is pointing to number 3. That means the hour is 3. On this clock, it is 3 o'clock because the shorthand is pointing to 3 and the blue hand is pointing to no minute. Long hand. Long hand. The long hand on this clock is blue. Fantastic. Shorthand. Shorthand. The shorthand on this clock is red. Well done. When the long hand points to 6, it is half past the hour. So the long hand on this clock is pointing to the 6 at the bottom, and that means it is half past. Half past. If the long hand is pointing to the 6 and the short hand is pointing between the 2 and 3, what time is it? I'm going to give you some thinking time. If that wasn't enough time for you, just pause the video and you can have a think or talk about it. If it was enough time for you, let's have a look. It is 2:30. Well done if you got that right. It is 2:30. So the shorthand is pointing to the 6. Sorry, the shorthand is pointing between the 2 and the 3. And the long hand, Miss Miller, is pointing to the 6. So the shorthand is telling you that it's not 2 o'clock, we've gone past it, and it's almost 3 o'clock now. And the long hand is telling you that it's half past. So it's telling you that this is 2:30. If the long hand is pointing to the 6, we know what that means. If the long hand is pointing to the 6 and the short hand is pointing between the 7 and the 8, what time is it? Fantastic. It is 7:30. The long hand is pointing to the 6, and that means it's past. The short hand is pointing between the 7 and the 8, and that means it's not quite 8 o'clock yet. So we know it's almost 8, so that tells us it's 7:30. If the long hand is pointing to the 6 and the short hand is pointing between the 11 and 12, what time is it? Fantastic. It is 11:30. We know it's 11:30 because the long hand is pointing to the 6. And we know it's past 11 because the arrow, the red arrow that tells us that the hour, the red hand has moved past 11. So it's 11:30. Okay, I hope that's easy enough for you to understand. It's a little difficult when you're not here for us to show you. So I want you to have a go now, and I want you to look at the clocks below and see if you can work with an adult or a sibling or anyone that might be able to help you, and see if you can tell us what time is on these clocks. So remember, when the arrow is pointing to 6, that is 11:30, okay? The arrow tells us the minutes, the long hand tells us the minutes, and the short hand tells us the hour. So the long hand, which is the blue arrow, is telling us that it is 11:30. Have a go and see if you can tell the time that is on these clocks. Why don't you post it on Tapestry, post it on Facebook so we can have a look and see what wonderful learning you're doing. Keep safe. We hope to see you soon.